Hector? Duty. Submission!
It all begins with a girl named Shar, who suddenly stumbles upon the site where a vehicle crash has occurred. She approaches the place and sets out to check if the woman who has been injured still has a pulse. However, instead of trying to help her or look for assistance, she decides to take a ring that the accident victim was wearing, which seems to have some kind of strange or mystical symbol engraved on it. After committing this act, the young woman heads to a nearby body of water to swim for a bit and cool off, leaving the site shortly after, without looking back. On the other hand, we meet Honey, a woman who works in private investigation. She receives a telephone notice very early to go check the scene where a crime has been committed. Upon showing up at the place, she runs into a homicide detective named Marty. This man does not stop trying to flirt with her in a very annoying way, completely refusing to accept that she is only attracted to women. Funny, after making a meticulous review of the corpse, when she returns to her workplace, Spider, who is her assistant in the office, tells her that the appointment she had scheduled for that day has been cancelled. A bit later, Honey receives Mr. Setfet, a new client who has the suspicion that his partner is cheating on him with someone else. The investigator tries to be sensible and suggests to him that if that cheating is true, the best thing would be to resolve the problem in an intimate and personal way, without getting detectives involved. However, the man is stubborn and demands to know all the possible details, as his real intention is to organize a revenge against his boyfriend. Later on, Honey goes to her sister's house to spend some time. During the visit, her youngest niece drops the sudden idea that she wants to marry her when she grows up, to which Honey responds with kindness that that is impossible because the law does not allow it. Her sister lives surrounded by many children and, in fact, is pregnant once again, expecting one more baby. In that family group, there is also Karen, a young woman with a quite rebellious attitude who is always in conflict. Honey tries to give a piece of advice to her sister and proposes that she have no more offspring, but the mother of the children reacts in a sharp way, telling her that she has no right to come give her life lessons or sermons. Meanwhile, we meet Drew, the man who runs the Four Roads Temple, an organization that has all the looks of being a dangerous cult. He is in the company of one of his followers when his main assistant appears with the news that one of the members of the group has died. Drew, proving to be a cold leader without a shred of humanity, shows no grief at all and heads to the scene of the event almost out of obligation. Once there, his explanation is that the young man consumed a forbidden substance that was property of the congregation. According to his twisted vision, the boy's death is a punishment sent directly by the divinity, implying that the youth brought about his own tragic end. Subsequently, Honey decides to go to a drinking establishment that is nearby, and there she meets someone named Elle, whom she seems to know from before. At that moment, Gary appears, the manager of the bar, and she takes the opportunity to ask him about a girl named Mia, who used to work in that establishment. It turns out that Mia is precisely the woman they found lifeless at the beginning of the story. Gary explains to her that the girl did not go to work when she was supposed to, and that shortly after they learned she was dead. Honey brings to her memory that Mia had telephoned her a short time ago very distressed, saying that she needed urgent help with a shady matter, and that she felt the police were not going to lift a finger for her. Both had agreed to meet in that same bar to talk, but the appointment never happened because Mia appeared dead before. On the other hand, Drew has a meeting with Cher and hands her a briefcase full of money. The girl warns him that the boss of both of them is quite upset, since the appearance of so many lifeless bodies is going to cause law enforcement agents to start watching everything with a magnifying glass. However, Drew, who is totally blinded by his ego and believes himself to be a superior being, assures her that no one has the power to defeat him because he is convinced that everything that happens is God's will. Then Cher returns to him the ring that she stole from the accident victim, commenting to him that now that the jewelry is not with the body, it will be harder for investigators to connect them to the case, although she warns him that for the next time he must be much more careful. Honey crosses paths with Marty again and requests that he provide her with the address of Mia's house. The detective insists again on playing the charming gentleman and tries to win her over, but the investigator moves with shrewdness, avoids his hints, and gets him to give her the data she was looking for. Upon leaving there, she keeps the address of a police officer whose name is Mai. This woman feels very attracted to Honey, but is too timid and does not dare to take the first step or tell her what she feels. Meanwhile, at another point in the city, a young man named Colligan enters a tavern and orders something to drink. After a short while, a subject named Hector appears, who brings an order that Colligan was waiting for. However, Hector flatly refuses to give it to him. Colligan invites him to go out to the street to talk and tells him that he will give him the money later on, but Hector accepts no excuses. In a desperate way, Colligan proposes a sexual favor in exchange for the debt, but just when he approaches to do it, Hector reacts with violence and punches him. The boy runs away terrified, gets into his vehicle, and tries to escape in a big hurry, but in the confusion, he ends up running over Colligan, taking his life. At that very instant, the bar employee is paralyzed by the shock of seeing such a tragedy, and the first thing he does is call the authorities. Honey is driving her car when suddenly she sees Cher pass by riding her motorcycle. She decides then to head to Mia's home and talk to her mother, to whom she explains that her daughter tried to contact her just a day before the tragedy occurred. Honey tries to get information from the lady, but the woman assures that she has not even the slightest suspicion of why Mia would want the services of a private investigator. Honey asks for permission to enter the deceased girl's room, and there she finds a book on personal growth. Upon starting to turn the pages, she is very surprised to see that the text is full of annotations, as if someone had studied it with a lot of attention. In addition, she finds other similar copies hidden. Looking under the box spring of the bed, she discovers a uniform or clothing that is used in churches, but the girl's parents confess to her that they do not know what congregation their daughter went to. Suddenly, among Mia's things, a very bold and sensual piece of underwear appears, something that does not fit at all with the image of a quiet and demure girl that everyone had of her. Meanwhile, Drew is giving one of his usual speeches in front of a bunch of faithful followers. He has a gift for words and manages to convince the crowd that they must trust him blindly, as he assures them that he is a divine messenger and that obeying his orders is the same as obeying the Creator. Then, Shugi approaches Drew to tell him all the details of what happened with Hector. He warns him that the boss is going to be very angry about this mess and that they have to act fast. Shugi tells him that the bartender saw everything, which makes Drew quite nervous. The cult leader comes to the conclusion that they have no choice but to get rid of Hector, since he is the only one who can lead the police to them. Hector, oblivious to all this, lives in his house with his grandmother and goes out of his way to take good care of her. He goes out to the yard for a moment to hang some rags to dry, but he begins to have the feeling that someone is watching him from the shadows, which makes his hair stand on end. When he decides to enter the house, he sees a strange hat lying at the entrance and runs inside, sensing the worst. What he finds is a gruesome scene. Someone has murdered his grandmother by cutting her throat. Unexpectedly, Chugi appears from behind to attack him, but Hector reacts in time and manages to defend himself. They begin to fight with a lot of rage, but Hector manages to dominate the situation and stabs him with a sharp object. Right before exhaling his last breath, Chugi draws his gun and shoots Hector. The young man, although he is wounded, remains on the ground, gathering his own teeth that have flown out from the blows, but he is still alive and makes sure to finish Shugi off. After that, he breaks down completely and starts crying inconsolably before the corpse of his beloved grandmother. On the other hand, Mr. Seth appears in Honey's office, dissolved in tears because his boyfriend Colligan has died. However, the most curious thing is that in the middle of his pain, it seems that he cares more about finding out who the person was with whom his partner was cheating on him. Han tries to get rid of him with patience, telling him that now it is the job of the law enforcement agents to investigate what really happened. Once the man leaves, Honey asks her assistant Spider to get the private telephone number of Officer MG. When night falls, Honey meets with her in a bar. She tells her how the case is progressing, but the conversation begins to turn more personal and affectionate. It is noticeable that between the two of them there is a special chemistry that goes beyond the professional. In the end, they decide to go together to the investigator's house, where they spend a night of much passion. The next morning, while Honey dedicates herself to picking up and cleaning her house a bit, someone knocks on the door. Upon opening it, she finds her niece Corinne, who has signs of having been physically mistreated by her boyfriend. The girl begs her aunt to please not tell her mother anything. Honey gives her word that she will keep the secret, but she sets a non-negotiable condition. Corinne has to leave that boy immediately. The young woman says yes, but deep down it is noticeable that she only says it to get through the moment. While this happens, Drew is relaxed in the company of two women when Hector bursts into the place armed, closes his eyes and begins to shoot like a madman at the bed. But upon opening them, he discovers that he has not hit anyone because the place is empty. Suddenly, Drew appears from behind and delivers a blow that leaves him unconscious. For her part, Corinne is fulfilling her working hours, but she feels watched and very uncomfortable because there is an old man with a strange appearance who has been sitting in the local for hours without taking his eyes off her. In another place, a man notices Drew that the investigator Honey wants to talk to him. At first, the leader gets a bit scared because he knows she is persistent, but right away, he recovers his calm and says that he will take care of handling the situation. Honey arrives and begins to question Drew, but he is an expert at dodging questions and prefers to try to seduce her and invite her out. She does not fall for his game and asks him directly if Mia was involved in trouble with them, but Drew swears that he knows nothing. Honey loses her temper and throws in his face that he is a hypocrite who uses religion to take advantage of young and vulnerable girls. He defends himself, saying that his only objective is to help them, and even offers to help Honey too, but she answers him in a blunt way that she prefers to rely on herself and leaves the temple. A time later, Honey finds herself talking to Mai, who comments to her that she recently ended a love relationship. The officer opens up and tells her that when she was little, she suffered a lot of abuse from her father, and that as soon as she had the opportunity, she fled from his side forever. Honey feels a lot of empathy because her own family history was very similar, although she adds that she knows nothing about her progenitor for very many years now. At that moment, we see Corinne finishing her workday. Upon leaving, she feels that there is someone stalking her. She walks toward the bus stop and freezes upon seeing that the same old man from before is sitting there. They stare at each other fixedly for a few seconds. The bus arrives at the stop, but the girl is so blocked by fear that she cannot react and sees how the vehicle leaves without her. Then the man says a few words to her. "I love you." This finishes terrifying the young woman who runs at full speed to get away from him. The next morning, Honey arrives at her office convinced that Drew is a very shady guy and that his organization has a lot to do with what happened to Mia. Right at that instant, her sister calls her very distressed to tell her that Corinne has not appeared all night. Honey lets it slip by accident that she was with the niece the day before, which causes the mother to enter into a total state of nerves. Honey takes off like a shot toward the home of the girl's boyfriend and gives him a monumental beating so that he will talk, pointing a gun at him. The boy swears and cross swears that he has not seen Corinne in the last 2 days. By the way he says it, Honey becomes convinced that he is not lying. Before leaving, she breaks the boy's weapon so that he cannot use it. Later, while she is at home trying to comfort her sister, the father of both of them appears. The man assures them that although he made many mistakes when they were girls, now he is a different person and that he only seeks an opportunity to make amends for his errors. He also tells them that he happened to see Corinne, which puts Honey on maximum alert. However, the old man does not know how to give many concrete details, so Honey decides to ignore him, and the man ends up crying because of the rejection. Honey spends the rest of the day going around the city, entering all the businesses and asking for Corinne, but she does not manage to find even a single clue. She feels exhausted and sits down to rest at the bus stop. At that moment, one passes by, and she stares at a church advertising poster that is pasted on the vehicle. Suddenly, a light turns on in her head, and she has a suspicion. When she arrives at her office, Spider notices her that Marty has called because he has new information about Mia's case. Honey returns the call, and the detective returns to the charge trying to meet with her for a date. She cuts him off short and asks him to get to the point. Marty tells her that they already have the results of the autopsy, and that they reveal that Mia did not die from the car crash. Apparently, there was a previous fight, and the girl received several stab wounds. He also informs her that last night they found another dead woman, and that the main suspect has dealings with the temple church. Spider gets scared thinking that the victim could be Corinne, but Honey is convinced that her niece is a girl with a lot of character and strength to let herself be caught. Thus they comment on how dangerous those groups are that take advantage of people who are going through a bad time to brainwash them and treat them in a horrible way. Meanwhile, Drew and Cher have an intimate encounter. After being together, he asks her why she has had that change of attitude, so affectionate with him. She responds that she simply wanted to grant him his last wish in life. Right after, she comments to him that the bosses are very unhappy with his management, and without mediating another word, she shoots him. At that precise instant, Honey, who was nearby, hears the blast of the weapon. She runs toward the place but only arrives to see Cher escaping in a big hurry on her motorcycle. Honey looks for Marty and asks him to go in to search the church because she has heard a shot, but the detective refuses, saying that he cannot disturb such an important religious leader if he does not have evidence that is irrefutable. But seeing that Marty does not care, she decides to take matters into her own hands on her own account. Honey tries to locate Officer M, but another colleague from the police tells her that she has not gone to work because supposedly she had too many drinks the night before. Then, Honey decides to go directly to Mai's house. When she arrives at the officer's home, she notices that the place seems to be neglected or empty. She rings the bell, but no one comes out to open. Upon realizing that the door is a bit open, she decides to enter. Once inside, she starts looking around and finds several photographs and the school memory book. Upon reviewing it, she sees her own photo with a very strange religious message written beside it. At that moment, Mai appears and Honey apologizes for having entered like that. The officer tells her that she was in the lower part of the house fixing a malfunction. Honey, who no longer trusts anything, comments to her that her niece worked near the police station and that she disappeared just when Emig was finishing her shift. She asks her directly if she knows anything about Corinne, but the woman denies everything. Honey notices then that there are two cups on a table and approaches to look. In one of them, she discovers a trace of green-colored lipstick. Before she can say anything, MG attacks her by surprise, striking her hand with a hammer. They begin to fight with much violence, and Mai confesses in the middle of her madness that she is the one responsible for the death of all those women. She says that she did it and that she would do it again just to prevent them from falling into the clutches of the church. She explains that she was also a victim of abuse in the past and that she is convinced that the women who get into that cult are like a virus that must be eliminated. She draws a blade weapon and confesses that she also ended the existence of her own father. She manages to wound Honey, but the investigator reacts and strikes her with a teapot of boiling water, causing her a severe burn. Honey manages to dominate the confrontation for a moment, but MG draws strength from weakness and tries to return to the attack. Just when the officer is going to act, she realizes that Honey has already taken away her defense. With no other choice, Honey operates the device and puts an end to MG's threat. After that, she tries to look for her niece around the house, but she feels very weak from her wounds and ends up losing consciousness. Upon waking up, she finds herself inside an ambulance and sees that Corinne is safe and sound beside her mother. Time passes and Honey recovers completely. She goes to see Marty, who recognizes that she was very brave and confirms to him that all the deaths have been officially attributed to Mai, so the file remains closed. The detective tries once more to convince her to go out, but she repeats to him that she prefers female company. Honey leaves there and while making a stop on the way she meets Cher again. Both look at each other and smile. Honey asks her what she is going to do now and Cher tells her that she has to go to the airport, but that she still has a free bit of time. Then Honey proposes to her to go first to her house to enjoy a good time together. With this ends this summary of the 2025 film called Honey Dant.